to the EngageTech YouTube channel. Thanks for joining us. My name is Amelia Loye, and today you're going to be watching one of the EngageTech demo series videos. And we're fortunate to have Joe Waller. Joe from BangTheTable. He's going to tell us about Engagement HQ. Joe, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Amelia. Thanks for the opportunity to be part of the demo series for the EngageTech YouTube series.
Thank you. So Joe's going to do a 15-minute demo of the product and give us a bit of an overview of the features of the tool and where it fits on the EngageTech Spectrum. And we'll have a little bit of a reflection on that together about where it fits on the spectrum and how different people in government agencies might use BangTheTable and Engagement HQ for their projects, and also to look at the way they're doing engagement across their organisation. After that, I'm going to ask Joe a couple of questions about the technical requirements of the tool, or how it meets government's technical requirements. So hopefully we answer most of your questions that'll help you advance the procurement process in your organisation and get started with a tool like BangTheTable. Thanks, Joe. Thanks for coming along, and yeah, give us a little bit of a demo, please.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. I think a bit of background about the organisation is that we've been operating for 10 years now in this space, specifically around having community involved in decisions that impact their lives. And as such, we're operating with clients from small local councils through to government departments and national government at all levels. And we're now operating across Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the US, and now the UK. So starting to be quite a big global operation, and with a strong powerhouse of a development office in India, where we've got a strong team who are continually evolving and updating the product. So what you see now is just at this point in time, but just be aware that we're doing at least 2 updates a month that get pushed out to all our clients. So that's sort of just the level of progression and of advancement for the tool continues to evolve.
Excellent. And Joe, before you get started on too much about features, I've noticed on your homepage you've got Engagement HQ and Engagement IQ, and there's a bit of confusion in the industry also about, is BangTheTable the tool? Maybe you could give us a bit of context around all of that.
Yep, so there's 2 sides of the business for BangTheTable. There's BangTheTable Engagement HQ, which is our online software as a service platform, so the tool which we'll be looking at directly for you. And then we've got Engagement IQ, which is a range of service packages which support organisations, whether it's about internal capacity building. For consultancies, is it about quick to launch, so actually doing project builds? Is it survey design work? So we've got a whole level of service packages which have evolved. And this is new to the market, so just being released in 2019, and something that, yeah, working quite heavily on, and we've got industry experts across the globe working with clients directly on their engagements for better outcomes.
Great, fantastic. Thanks, Joe. That puts it into context. And BangTheTable, for everybody, is the company name with those 2, the services and the tool.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
So what we'll look at today is jumping into Engagement HQ as a platform. So we've got a live demo site, which is always available for people to come and look at, livedemo.engagementhq.com. So when we're speaking about engagement, we speak about, this is about an ongoing relationship that you have with your community. Other things are that there's 3 key questions: is who needs to be involved in the consultation. So Engagement HQ as a platform can be set up for, most people come to us for broad public consultations, but there's also an ability to lock it down to invite-only groups. So we're actually starting to see a large volume of consultations be closed to key stakeholder groups. So who needs to be involved? The next question is, to what extent can they actually influence the project? So at this point, there needs to be a whole range of tools as a facilitator or a project manager that you'd like to select from based on the stage or the ability for that cohort to influence the project. So that's where we have a full suite of tools, everything from quick polls, discussion forums, interactive mapping, live Q&A events, idea boards, stories. All of these tools can be toggled on and off at different stages based on what you as a facilitator or a project manager want to be able to use your, or tap into your community at that point in time. So we'll look at all of these tools in situ. The last thing that we're always speaking about is based on who needs to be involved in the consultation, what are the negotiables, how can they influence it, is access to information. So what resources do they need to be able to review to be an informed participant in the process? We'll quickly run through sort of the tools in situ. First, quick polls. This is a really nice, simple tool that can be toggled on and off at different stages, just getting a temperature gauge or a formal vote in relation to options being provided to the community. So you can have images here. It doesn't just need to be text. You can allow it to be anonymous if you're wanting just a temperature gauge, or you can require people to register so you can secure that you are getting unrigged votes. So it's a nice quick way to get an understanding of certain options. These can be situated on the right-hand side. Whenever we're looking at a project page, there's three key areas. There's sort of the project description, so what it is about the project. It can be, you can embed rich media and other information sharing here. The tools toggle on and off below the fold. And then on the right-hand side, we've got a whole range of capacity building widgets. So project timelines. I think this is probably the most important one, allowing people to understand the stage of the consultations and what opportunities they have to get involved. And of course, all of these pages are dynamic. So the platform's built in a dynamic way, so it works on all devices that your community are using. So that's sort of a quick one. We'll jump into just some of the key features of the platform that we see really are about driving broader engagement. So discussion forums typically require a bit more from the community to get involved. This is an opportunity where the community can have a dialogue with one another. As an organisation, you can come in and facilitate. Jumping in, being able to, there's two options here. There's one where you can allow the community to set their own discussion forums. More often than not within a project, there are some set parameters. So there's an ability for people to come in and comment, agree and disagree with other people. You'll also notice that all of these options are actually moderated in discussion forum mode. So anything where a community member's submission is public, we have 3 levels of moderation. The first is an automatic colourful language filter looking for some keywords, which automatically puts up a prompt that people aren't allowed to post and asks them to reconsider. And then we have a moderation team around the globe reviewing every comment and image that gets posted on the site that's publicly visible. So it's about providing a safe space for those dialogues to happen. Next, we'll look at interactive mapping. So this is one that's sort of, we're starting to see drives a high level of participation. It's easy for people to get involved. You can set a whole range of multiple layers on your maps and allow people to drop and pin comments. Each of these pages actually has a little video introducing the tool, so you can come through at your own pace as well. If we look here, you can have different layers, different levels. You can have a whole range of different pins that you can start to drag and drop. From an accessibility perspective, you're also capturing the actual physical address of the pin drop, and you can start to look at other people's contributions and filter them as a public member. So if you're only interested in the dangerous traffic conditions, you can start to filter and see the hotspots. So it's interactive mapping. Just quickly go back now. Now I think we're also seeing some really lovely uses of interactive mapping for community development and community building. So some local councils are starting to use it for edible foods. So where are there fruit trees and edible foods within a community, being used for citizen science around koala spottings, earthworms. There was a great Kiwi earthworm study as well done on the platform where people were digging holes and categorizing worms. So really fantastic use of the platform in that sense. Interactive Q&A is an opportunity where the community can ask a question. It gets sent through to the back end, and then you as a facilitator can then either respond publicly or privately, which is a really nice way to risk mitigate against potential issues within a consultation. And lastly, everyone will jump into ideas. So ideas is an interactive idea board. Think of it like brainstorming or post-it notes on the wall. We've been seeing this being used in face-to-face sessions as well as online. What we really like about digital first or online engagement is it actually opens up the participants to be in an environment where they can be reflective. They're not having to respond directly at that point in time, such as what happens in face-to-face. With the ideas tool, you can add your own idea, comment on other people's ideas, and there's an option to toggle on voting, so you can start to get an understanding of broad sentiment around other ideas that have already been presented. So all of these tools can be toggled on and off at different stages, and it really is about people having the power to, as project managers, think about their engagement, what levels of influence the community can have at different stages, and being quite clear about those negotiables and the options to be involved. And I think I suppose the whole power of this is about an ongoing relationship, being able to analyse the information in the back end, look at how people have contributed in different ways. So we'll jump into that in a moment. Yeah. So that's a quick overview of the key features. We've also got surveys, guest books, so everyone's familiar with an online survey. We don't need to jump into that, but the whole question logic, framing, being able to filter by different, in the back end, you're able to filter by different responses as well, look at demographic profiles. So that's sort of the key thing, is when you're looking at this data, actually understanding who's participating, and more importantly, who isn't. So you can, during your consultation process, you can start to either validate insights that are coming through, or go back to the public and actually look for contributions from people who should be represented who currently aren't.
That's great, Joe. Thank you. So I'm going to ask a few more questions about analysing information a little bit later, but let me just summarise where I see your product, Engagement HQ, sitting on the EngageTech Spectrum, because that's really what I'm trying to do with these videos, is help people understand how to use what tools when. So I think it's great that you've got such a variety of online engagement functionalities, the polls, the discussion forums, the various moderation features on those discussion forums. I think is particularly something quite unique to this product and the service that BangTheTable offer. So those 3 levels of moderation, I think, are really worth, if you are looking at doing an online engagement forum, it's really worth considering how you're going to filter that information, but also to facilitate that conversation. And I'm curious, Joe, to talk to you a little bit more about some of the services that you're providing under Engagement IQ as well, and how project teams and government might work with you to facilitate those forums and encourage participation on the forums. The Q&A, the interactive Q&A is great. Is that kind of like a little bit of a chatbot sort of thing, or is that a live person? How does that work?
So it's set up so as an organisation or a project manager, you actually determine who's the responsible person to respond to those.
Yep.
So an automatic notification can be set up so it goes, people get an understanding of when they're likely to get a response.
Right.
And know that they're going to be getting a response from an expert at a certain point in time. So it's just about mitigating that. I think probably one of the best ones, if we look at Melbourne Airport at the moment, My Melbourne Airport, they've been using it for a number of their consultations. We've seen it being used for North East Link, but ones where the questions that are coming through are really specific. When the question is directly related to, say, a specific address, the response really is just only relevant to that individual. So the response would be sent back through the system to the individual and not published publicly. Whereas if it's of a general public nature, you can respond publicly. So it starts to evolve beyond the, I suppose, frequently asked questions to start that momentum of a relationship back and forth, rather than preempting what you think the community are going to ask. Have the people come in, ask the questions and respond using their language. So it starts that relationship at an early stage or fact-finding part of a consultation.
It certainly makes the process a bit more open and transparent, and, as well, I think. You know, as you say, you're building that relationship, you're being transparent, you're being open and responsive. So that's I love that tool. And I also like it as a way of kind of understanding the frequently asked questions and using that as a guide to kind of adding to that list of frequently asked questions as you hear them coming through there.
Yeah, we always have that internal discussion around what's the difference between a Q&A and a frequently asked question. And for me, frequently asked questions are more around process, how the information is going to be used, whereas a Q&A is more around context. So you could provide all of the responses of what you think people are going to be asking, but just allowing the community to start that relationship back and forth creates a bit of momentum early on. And it's the only tool that I think really is valid across the full stage of an engagement process, from early fact finding through to the end. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I've had some really wonderful success in terms of the relationships that I've been able to build with stakeholders because I've just been open to answering their questions. And I think doing that in an open format certainly demonstrates that transparency and openness, as I've said already. I like your map-based engagement. Looks like a great interface. Sounds you've got guest books. Is that different to stories, or are they the same?
So guest books is more of a lighter form. So with stories, people are able to provide a much larger narrative and upload videos and imagery. Whereas with guest book, it's very much a text-based response. So people can just leave a broad sentiment around a consultation. We had a great one from Rotorua Lakes Council in relation to a skate park. I'll just bring that one up here. And what they've started to do as a practice is using the guest book as a tool post-consultation. So where they're still wanting the community to be, for a short time after the consultation, being able to give their feedback in relation to the overall process. Yeah. And it's really nice to just see sort of a whole range of sentiment coming through. Like, I like it. I'd love to see an outdoor rink for roller skaters, all the way through to individuals saying, look, we've not had a wage rise in a couple of years. Why are we spending money on such an investment in the council area? So it still provides that opportunity for people to give a comment, even though the ability to influence the outcome of the project is closed.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, ongoing feedback. And I'm sure council can use that as a source of information if there's some scope to influence other things potentially down the track, potentially even investment into the park in future. And of course, you said surveys. That's right. Surveys and submissions. You guys have been in the business for a long time, Joe. You didn't show your submission platform, but I imagine that it's got functionalities to publish. How does it? What are some of the big features that people are looking at when they look at your submission platform?
So when they're looking at submissions, is just the setup of a survey tool. So are you allowing a single submission, or are you allowing multiple? The automatic pull through or push through of that into other systems. So a lot of councils or a lot of organisations have a document repository system. So we've got an open API. So information that comes through from the platform can automatically be pushed through into other platforms or CRMs, which is really important. DARSing, Consultation Manager, etc. So those are and we're building more as we speak. So whenever we have clients who have bespoke needs in relation to integrations, we've got an integration specialist now who sort of manages those on a case-by-case basis.
Great.
The other thing I suppose that is really important is the submission process. We're in the process of evolving a submission management tool which actually has a nice back-end workflow as well.
Okay.
I think that's really important moving forward. So watch this space.
Sounds really interesting, especially when combined with your Q&A, which seems to have sort of almost a workflow back to project team members as well for response. I like where you're going with that. So just to relate this back to the EngageTech Spectrum for anyone who's listening and is familiar with it, Engagement HQ looks like it provides a range of different methods for engagement, potentially across different stages of your project. So you might, with a license, Joe, use it, these different techniques or engagement tools at different stages. But it also sounds like this is providing a range of different engagement options for different project teams across your organisation if you were to buy an Engagement HQ license. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So the broad approach that we've always taken is that this is about having a holistic relationship with your community. So people's inputs in one project still might have an interest in other areas. And what we actually see is through having a centralized platform, a higher level of engagement and participation across a range of different projects, which in some cases might not necessarily have historically received a good level of participation. And with an ability to have a centralized platform with all of these tools that you can toggle on and off, it really becomes a dynamic environment across that whole EngageTech spectrum. If you are actually in that empower stage or collaborate, how are you using the suite of tools to facilitate that collaboration with that cohort? Whereas a project which might actually have no ability to influence, but going to have an impact on the community, you might just be using the platform as a space to inform people around what are the changes that are happening, and toggling on a Q&A tool so people can at least have some interaction about that individual project. So I think that's the great thing about this, is it really supports a holistic approach around all of the different projects that organisations might be facing at any.
Yeah, no, that sounds really good, Joe. Yeah, so use it at different stages of the project, use different features, or potentially use a variety of methods, even during your consultation phase. Yeah, and I can see that you're presenting information in different ways with the maps, I guess discussion forums, and I know that you can present information, for example, like discussion papers or draft documents as well on your site too, can't you, Joe?
That's correct. So there's the full range of, I suppose, what most CMSs would have around document libraries, slideshows, all of that ability to share information in context of the consultation.
Great.
I think what's also great is in the platform, you get the metrics on those. So if you've got sort of a standard approach, or you set up a framework to engage on specific projects, you can start to get feedback on what is it that people are actually interacting with, so that you can refine your resources in future consultations. So I think that's a really important thing that, especially in evaluating a consultation, that needs to be done.
Yeah.
Not so much during the consultation, it's good to see to what extent people are informed when they're participating, but in that post-consultation period and evaluating it, start to understand, well, why didn't people access these resources or look at these as much as the others? Do we need to invest as much in having this beautifully designed document, or more interested in blog posts or regular updates or videos about content?
I think that's a really important point, which is like, how are we designing the engagement experience for the user, and what insights can we generate about our stakeholders and how they want to be engaged? So, and I think the more you use the same platform, or the more you're able to generate insights about what people like, I think, on your platform. So that's certainly a big consideration for people who are looking at something for their whole organisation and building their relationships with their stakeholders beyond a single consultation. And you mentioned, I just want to follow through on the top end of the EngageTech spectrum, the arch. We've talked about informing, we've talked about consulting, we've talked about crowdsourcing, visualization through maps. I think there's probably a little bit of scope for collaboration through the forums, and you mentioned sort of empowering and community organising. It seems like there's a bit of scope through that, the stories, the guest book. What about promotion of engagements? If we've got good metrics on who is engaging and how people are engaging, how are you able to use your tool as a way of promoting engagement as well, to reach beyond the people who are already engaging, or to engage with people who potentially engaged on a previous project and have an interest in the subject matter?
Yeah, so I think that's one of the biggest things about the platform is the participant management part of the site. So with those that have registered or have been part of a previous consultation, you can review that and involve them in different cohorts that you can communicate back out to. So that's with those that have already got a relationship or had some interaction with your existing site. We also have social sharing across the site. So across all of your consultations, you decide whether you want this toggled on or not as a feature, but you allow the community to either share through their own Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, email network. So that's about allowing the community to start to evolve and promote it within their own network. So you're starting to reach that broader net. We also have integrations with other email management tools. So we have clients who have integrations with Campaign Monitor and MailChimp. So tapping into those existing databases, there's a live link between Engagement HQ and those. So you're starting to build that out. So that's about broadcasting through other channels that you might already have.
Yep, that's great. And also through your network, which is the power of social networks, right? Is getting beyond, the people who you already have in your network is through peer-to-peer sharing.
That's correct. And I suppose the great thing about this is if we did go and do a social share through LinkedIn or any of the other channels, it actually pulls people right through to this central point. It also pre-populates the share with information about the project as well, which is a really nice way to do it. Oh, not coming up on that one. Great example, Joe.
It's
Here we go.
Yeah, it came up. It was just a bit. Yeah, it did. I saw it. It's coming up. Right. Yeah. So let's go down to the bottom of the EngageTech Spectrum, where we have analyze information and issues tracking. And you talked about tracking sort of sentiment based on liking, sharing, commenting on ideas and discussion forums, but also the questions that are coming through. You also spoke about demographic profiling and understanding who's participating. What other ways does your product allow the user to sort of understand who's participating in their process, and perhaps maybe even try to reach a broader section of the population and increase representation in these kinds of processes?
Yeah, so I think there's a few things around what types of consultations attract different people, but then understanding of those who have you attracted. So the registration process is designed by clients for what they want. So if we look at Rotorua as a great example in relation to their registration process, is often, especially in there's a myth that registration detracts from people being involved in consultations. And what we've actually found from a public organisation perspective, this not to be true. We've had a number of examples now where organisations have previously just had a screen name and a password to see levels of to register for engagement. What we see now is organisations asking this full range of questions. So you choose these, but being able to say, look, are we getting a good demographic of Maori coming through to this consultation? Are they important to it? So you can have a dynamic registration form which starts to evolve, but those attributes get added to their contributions across the site. So you can start to filter them. So whenever you go into analytics and reports, I suppose the first thing that you're looking at is who's been involved in the consultation when you're drilling into it, jumping through. So just into our reporting, you can select your project, a time frame, that understanding of return on investment for where people have come from. So we use a method called Aware, Informed, Engaged. Aware is how well have you promoted it, where have they come from? So that's looking at absolute numbers. Informed is a percentage, so what percentage have started to interact with information, and engaged is the percentage of those that have actually contributed to the consultation. So when we understand those metrics, and then we start to see, have they come directly to the site? Is it from a social channel? Is it from emails or search engines? What impact has that channel actually had on that project, on said project? It's a really strong metric to start to understand where your promotion and consultations are coming from.
Yep.
And then when you jump into your actual specific tools, so any of your feedback reports, so for your said project, you look at your demographic questions and you can start to see who's being represented, more importantly, who's not. Are we comfortable with starting to analyse the data, or do we need to go out and do some more promotions to said cohort? Consensus isn't always the right answer as well. So I think that's important, is that you shouldn't be always just going out all the time to different cohorts, it needs to be quite specific. Yeah.
What did you say was always the right answer?
It's not always the right answer. Consensus is not always the right answer.
Or achievable.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, no, I think that's representing a variety of views and a complex issue is really important, and being able to, it's a big part of what I've been doing in engagement is presenting that variety of views so that different perspectives can be weighed up and impacts can be managed because they're different on different people and areas often in projects. Yeah,
that's right.
Okay, that's really great, Joe. And the other thing on the bottom end of the EngageTech spectrum is relationships. I mean, we've talked about participant management. And you mentioned integration with DARS and consultation manager. Is that the main way you recommend clients manage relationships ongoing? Or have you got any other tips for how to use your system for relationship management?
Yep, so creating different stakeholder groups. So within the participant management, you can create a whole range of groups based on registration form data. So you can create a whole different stakeholder group and use them to send bespoke messaging. You can also set up automatic notifications so that when people do participate in some projects that they get introduced to like similar projects automatically. So there's that whole process of the system set up to help cross-pollinate existing consultations, but really it's about understanding who your community are and what their interests are.
Great.
When you're promoting out to them, not just doing a cold blast out to your database every time there's a new consultation.
Yeah.
Other thing we see is that regular communication that's bespoke seems to have a higher return rate. So if we look at your broad dashboard, when we look at that ROI, so whenever you do not dashboard, analytics. So whenever you do an email communication out, starting to see, if we just pull through and say, look, we only want to look at what's come through via our email channel, get rid of social there, you can start to see what impact that channel has had. And I think that's really important, that when you start sending really bespoke messaging, you see little spikes whenever you send them. You send a monthly update of all the consultations to everyone, it actually starts to lose its power after a couple of sends. So it's really about being bespoke, acknowledging who you're sending information through to.
I guess you could use that also to respond to certain issues as well. If you're wanting to sort of close the loop in your engagement, and a collection of people who have participated have said that they're interested in one particular issue, you could loop back to them and say how you've addressed that particular issue.
That's correct. And you can set those things up automatically. So when you're actually setting up a project, you can use project tags. So people adopt tags that have been allocated to that project. So with that, you can start to automatically create a group based on certain tags or a range of issues. So it's a great way to use the platform. And I think that when you think about ongoing relationships, the biggest thing is closing the loop at different stages of consultation, letting people know when transition points happen in a project. So that's where you use those communication tools. So the newsletter, putting an update on the actual project page. All of them, there's a whole range of different ways you need to do that consistently. And I think that's it, is that as long as you're consistent in your approach, that's where the community start to become familiar with what their expectations are, how to get involved, and ongoing participation is really key. Yeah,
that's really good. I like that feature, Joe. So it sounds like you can, just looking at your dashboard, I just want to confirm some assumptions. It sounds like you can report against projects and across different methods on those projects, and also report, report across all of the projects that you might be running as an organisation for any period of time.
That's correct. And those reports can be pulled they can be downloaded in Excel, PDF, for easy sharing amongst key stakeholders.
Great. Yeah, so the reason we've got that layer, that issues and information management and relationship management on the bottom of the EngageTech Spectrum is because we really recommend that whatever people are using for their engagement, that they're actually thinking about how they can report across the different methods that they use on a project, but also across projects, and manage those relationships consistently, as you say. So it's a very comprehensive solution that you guys have developed, and you've got lots of experience. It sounds like the project teams who use your products can generate insights themselves. What about the services that the Engagement IQ team are providing? How are they helping project teams? What's the plan?
Yep, so the plan moving forward is that it is very much an advisory. We're really focused on supporting organisations in the capacity building space, not actually doing the work for them. Yep. So that's a really key component, but there are elements which we can jump in and do. So everything from jumping in and facilitating project design, and then how it integrates in the online space, how to set up survey design, online engagement approaches. So those are, I suppose, the key aspects of Engagement IQ service delivery, but there's other areas there that if you've got a large project and you're wanting us to do comment tagging, so in relation to managing discussion forums or free-flowing text responses, what levels of support do you want there? So we've got a whole range of options that look at both, I suppose, planning for your consultations, execution and management during your consultations, and capacity building and support for staff in those roles.
Yeah, that's great, Jay. That's very comprehensive. You mentioned, we talked about integration. So these are the questions that I run through with everybody. We talked about integrations, and we've discussed your APIs. We've discussed some integrations with relationship management tools and some of your exports. What about websites? You know, most project teams, organisations have their own, .gov.au or NZ. How would this kind of product, how does your product integrate with the client's websites or project websites?
Yep, so most clients use Embed Us as a subdomain, so replacing the www. So if we just look here at Rotorua, they manage their own website URL and just redirect that subdomain to Engagement HQ as a platform. So it stays within that environment. We do have other organisations who wish to have a different instance from their organisational website, so we manage the URLs for them on that behalf.
Great. Okay, excellent. Big question from most government agencies is about data security, storage, and privacy. How are you guys helping governments manage those issues, and how do you meet most government needs? What have you done to develop that?
I think we're in this space, we're definitely leading the way. We've got our ISO 27001 certification. So that's around data security, privacy and management, and also GDPR compliance. So with us as an organisation operating across the globe, it's important that we meet those standards. So that's, given that that's our business, we need to be compliant. It's a non-negotiable for us. And the same in relation to accessibility. So our approach to accessibility is ongoing internal and external audits. And that's also part of our development process before we release anything. It goes through that process. One of the things we're looking into further down the track with EIQ is actually doing accessibility audits for clients. So the platform as itself is accessible. When clients are building out their content and providing it, making sure that there's closed captioning. The platform itself works from an accessibility perspective, but when you're adding information to the site, just making sure that it still meets those requirements.
Okay, great. Languages? Do you guys deal in any other languages? You said you're working in Canada. Doing French, yeah?
Form is in English only. It wouldn't be too much to change. Moving forward, if people required that, I think we're starting to see a lot of organisations start to use a whole range of plugins for multiple different languages, like Google Translate. To the extent that people find that reliable is up to their own own choice. The platform itself, yeah, that's right. The platform itself, though, is you can actually set up consultations in Chinese, Arabic, as long as you've got the keyboard set up. You can actually put consultations in those ways. We had a great consultation through NZTA, and actually had the same survey running in English, Cantonese, Vietnamese and Mandarin. And yeah, so they ran the same survey and had a team on standby to interpret translate the open-ended questioning, but all of the other quantitative data lined up. So that was a really fantastic way to do it.
Excellent. Great. That's very thorough. And I've already asked you the question about reports and data and how you work with other products. So let's wrap up with what's the best way to get in touch with you if anybody has any more questions or would like to see more about the product or discuss sort of their project requirements.
Yep, across the globe, because this is going to a global audience, go to BangTheTable.com, and there's an option up the top to either contact us or request a demo, so we can have a good discussion and actually go through a whole range of how the platform might work in context of your situation, because I think that's the important thing, is understanding where organisations are and, yeah, marrying that up rather than just pushing something. It's really important that there's a good fit. So request a demo or contact us, and we've got offices across the globe now. So be great to hear from you soon.
Great. Well, great to see you guys doing so well, Joe, and congratulations to you and the team. But for expanding globally, that's big news for you and for Australian companies in this area. Thank you so much for your time, everybody. This is one of our EngageTech series. So we're going to be recording demos with providers across the world. At the moment, we're prioritising demos with providers who participated in the EngageTech forum, and Joe and his team from Bang the Table sponsored both the New Zealand and the Australian EngageTech forum in 2008. So thanks also for that, Joe, for the support for that. The purpose of those forums and these demos is to educate the market about the tools that are available and how they might be used in your organisation to improve engagement and democratic process between elections. So thanks, Joe, for your contribution to our industry and a better world. We might wrap it up there, and if anybody wants to get in touch with Engage2 to learn more about the work that we do helping people use these tools and other progressive engagement techniques, they can get in touch with us through www.engage2.com.au. We will help you develop your strategy, peer review your strategy, find the right tools for your engagement, and also support organisational change. And we do that in a product agnostic way, so we're not affiliated with any of the providers that we showcase. We're just trying to expand the market for everybody so that the practice improves. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, much appreciated. Bye.